My name is Aurora Wynn, 32 years old. When we moved into this house 3 years ago, it was supposed to be a clean slate, a quiet, suburban life with my husband Brandon. Just the two of us, no kids yet, no rush, no noise. We wanted time to breathe, to enjoy the calm before the next chapter. The house wasn't new, but it had charm, a wraparound porch that glowed in the late sun, a fenced yard for herbs and laughter, and a little garden patch that drank in the light like a promise. I found the place through a contact from work, an underpriced deal that seemed heaven sent. I handled all the paperwork, payments, inspections, utilities. Brandon never asked for details. It wasn't neglect, it was trust. Or maybe it was something else I hadn't named yet. Comfort in not knowing. For a while, it really did feel like a dream, until the visits began. At first, Sundays, then Thursdays, then random Tuesdays, when I'd return from work to find the front door unlocked and the smell of overcooked fish drifting through the hall. Cheryl and Walter, Brandon's parents, lived in an aging condo downtown. They said they just wanted to see the new place, but each visit stretched longer, each exit delayed. "Oh, this place is so cozy," Cheryl would hum every time, eyes sweeping over the furniture I'd chosen. "You're lucky to have all this space. You could grow tomatoes here." Walter would nod, already measuring the soil with his gaze. "The sun's good for squash." Brandon laughed the first time. "You two should just move in already." He said it like a joke, but his eyes flicked toward me for a reaction. I didn't laugh. That was no joke. That was a test. Before we married, I had one rule carved in stone. I will never live with your parents. It wasn't stubbornness. It was survival. I grew up watching my mother get chipped away by my grandmother's control day after day until she left my father when I was 12. My brother stayed behind. I went with her. No one stopped it. My mother never recovered from those years of quiet humiliation, and I swore I never would repeat her story. Brandon had agreed back then without hesitation. "I get it," he'd said. "Totally. I'm the second son anyway. Jared will take care of them." He'd kissed my forehead. Easy, certain. For a while, that certainty made me safe. But things shift quietly before they collapse. One morning, Cheryl arrived carrying a whole sea bass, wrapped in newspaper. "It was on sale," she said cheerfully. "You can fillet it. You're such a good cook." I wasn't. Not like that. I'd never touched a whole fish in my life. I tried, hacking my way through YouTube tutorials, cutting and cleaning until my kitchen smelled like regret. When she tasted it that night, she sighed. "Well," she said, "it's edible." Walter started planting squash in my herb bed the next week. "This soil's good," he said, brushing dirt from his gloves. My basil and rosemary disappeared under sprawling vines. Brandon just watched, smiling. "They're helping," he said. Helping. Then the fridge raids began. Leftovers gone, yogurts vanished. I asked Brandon gently, "Are you snacking more?" He shrugged. "Oh, maybe Mom and Dad grabbed something. I gave them a key in case of emergencies." "Emergencies?" I repeated. I confronted Cheryl politely. "Could you let me know if you take something from the fridge? I plan dinners ahead." She pursed her lips. "Maybe you should label things then. I'm not a mind reader." Brandon laughed awkwardly. "Aurora, don't be petty. It's just food." That was the first fracture. Not the theft, not the intrusion, the dismissal. The sound of my husband defending his parents against my boundaries. It was a sound I'd heard before, long ago, when my mother pleaded for peace and my father said, "She means well." That night I lay awake, watching the ceiling fan spin shadows across the room. Is this how it starts? I wondered. One boundary pushed, then another, until survival becomes silence. The next morning, I asked him quietly, "Are your parents planning to move in?" He blinked too fast. "What? No. Why would you think that?" I said nothing. He shrugged. "Even if they did, what's the big deal? We have space." I looked at him. "You promised me." "Things change, Aurora. Life changes." He said it like a slogan. Casual, dismissive. Something inside me shifted. Not rage, not fear, but clarity. I needed the truth. So I called Rachel, his sister-in-law, married to his older brother Jared. She was kind, quiet, the type who noticed more than she said. "Hey," I began. "This might sound odd, but have Cheryl and Walter mention moving?" A long pause, then a sigh. "You don't know?" My stomach tightened. "Know what?" "Their condo's condemned. Foundation issues. Construction starts in 2 months. They have to move out." Silence. "They didn't tell you?" "No." Rachel hesitated. Jared and I offered to help with rent, but they refused. Walter said Brandon already agreed to take them in. I gripped the phone. What? And there's more, she whispered. Brandon and Jared argued over the condo. Jared offered to pay for repairs if their dad put it in his name. Brandon refused. He said the deed should stay with their father. He wants to be the one who cares for them, so he inherits what's left later. I sat down hard. There's nothing left, I said. The condo's underwater. Rachel's voice softened. I know, but he doesn't. When I hung up, I sat in the kitchen staring at the window, where Walter's squash vines strangled my herbs. The air smelled of damp soil and invasion. Every kindness, every visit, it had all been preparation. They weren't guests, they were settlers. And my husband had been their accomplice. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just smiled, small and sharp, because finally I understood. That night, I stopped arguing. I stopped moving Walter's tools off the counter. I stopped mentioning missing groceries. I stopped resisting. Instead, I whispered, no problem. And quietly, methodically, I began to plan my own invasion. Not of their comfort, but of their illusion. If they were going to stage a slow takeover, I would stage something bigger, something final. The next morning, I woke before the alarm and lay still, listening to the house breathe. The refrigerator motor hummed, the pipes sighed, and somewhere a floorboard creaked under a weight that wasn't mine. I slipped out of bed and padded to the kitchen. Walter's gardening gloves sat palm to palm on the counter like a prayer someone forgot to finish. I put them in a drawer and closed it softly, the way you close a lid over something that shouldn't have been opened. At lunch, I told my assistant I'd be out for an offsite. I parked 2 blocks from a small brick office with a dented brass plaque, Bayview Realty. Inside, a woman looked up from her laptop with a steadiness that felt like kindness, the kind that doesn't flinch at the truth. Jenna, she said, offering her hand. Coffee? We sat in a glass-walled conference room that made everything look cleaner than it felt. I told her I wanted a quiet listing. No yard sign, no open houses, no whispers that might reach the wrong ears. I need discretion and speed, I said. 2 weeks, if possible. She didn't blink. We can do private showings to vetted buyers. I'll handle the paperwork. You'll need to confirm ownership and mortgage status. She paused, measuring me. Is there anyone who might contest the sale? No, I said. There's no one on the deed but me. Jenna slid a stack of forms toward me. Then let's begin. As I signed, I watched my pen move through my married name, careful and practiced, then through the name I'd kept for bank accounts and deeds. It felt like running 2 fingers along a seam and deciding, finally, which side was home. We scheduled a discreet appraisal, a photographer who didn't need a sign in the yard, and a buyer already circling, someone who'd lost out on another property and was ready to move fast. I'll text you times, Jenna said, gathering pages with efficient hands. You'll just need to be away during showings. That won't be a problem, I said, and meant it. When I got back, a new rug with red paisleys lay across the living room, a riot of pattern where there had been calm. Cheryl pressed her lips into a smile. Do you like it? The beige you chose felt impersonal. This is warmer. It's something, I said. She took that as praise. That evening, I cooked pasta and said nothing when Walter salted it before tasting. I didn't move his toolbox. I didn't ask about the chicken missing from the fridge. You're quiet, Brandon said later, almost cheerful with relief that I wasn't fighting. Thank you for being flexible. Flexible. I smiled at the word, the way you smile at a joke you've heard too many times. How was your day? I asked. And he brightened, talking about a meeting where his boss praised him, how he'd stayed late to help a coworker finish a deck, how good it felt to be useful. Jared's team hit their numbers again, he added, looking away. Dad called to congratulate him, like always. You sound proud, I said. He flinched. Sure. We stood beside the sink, plates stacked, water running. Brandon, I said quietly, why didn't you tell me about your parents' condo? His mouth opened, then shut. The faucet hissed. Finally, he said, I didn't know how to explain it without you, making it complicated. Without me holding you to a boundary you agreed to? He stared at the wet plate in his hands. You don't understand what it's like with Jared. He's always been the one Dad admired, the solid son. He makes safe choices, he plans, he keeps his promises, I said too quickly. Brandon swallowed. If I take care of Mom and Dad, they'll see I can be that too. It's not about money, it's about being the good son for once. The words landed between us and turned into something heavy. He sounded like a child negotiating for a prize he already believed he'd lost. For a breath, I saw the boy in him, the one who learned to earn love through service, even when it cost someone else. Then I remembered the woman in me, who had already paid enough. Being a good son doesn't require being a bad husband, I said. He set the plate down too hard. Don't turn this into a competition. I'm not competing, I said. I'm leaving the game. The next day, the appraiser came while Brandon was at work, and his parents were out to lunch for 3 hours that smelled like a ride-along to a furniture store. I walked the man through each room, answered questions with cool clarity, and watched him note the upgrades my father would have admired. On my way out, I found a small chip on the doorframe near the kitchen, a nick I remembered from the day we moved the dining table and laughed too hard to care. I ran my thumb over it, then let my hand fall. That night, Cheryl made a point of cooking. We thought we'd give you a break, she said, bustling in like a host in someone else's life. The casserole trembled under a crust that looked like snow after a thaw. Mid-meal, she dabbed her lips and sighed. You know, some women would be grateful to have in-laws who help. I don't mean to be unkind, Aurora, but it's unusual to be so territorial when you've been given so much. She gave a soft, pitying laugh. You don't want to let your independence curdle into selfishness. Brandon didn't look up. Walter speared a square of casserole like it had wronged him. I set my fork down. You're right, I said. Gratitude is important. I'm grateful for clarity. Meaning, Cheryl asked, sweet as salt. Meaning no one will have to wonder where they belong much longer. She blinked. Well, that's cryptic. I'm just trying to be considerate, I said, and took my plate to the sink. After dinner, Brandon followed me to the bedroom. What is going on? I folded laundry. I'm making space. For what? For what comes next. His laugh was a scrape. You think you can make me choose between you and my parents? No, I said, stacking shirts. You already chose. The day it rained like the sky forgot how to stop. The paperwork cleared. Jenna texted me a single line. Sale finalized. Keys to transfer next week. I stared at the message until the words steadied, until the feeling of a door unlocking inside me wasn't terrifying. It was quiet. It was precise. That evening, Brandon came home early with a bottle of wine and the look of someone who'd practiced his speech in the car. I've been thinking, he said, breezy in a way that made my skin go cold. Mom and Dad are comfortable here. It's pointless to drag this out. Let's just make it official. They'll stay. It's temporary. A few months. You can adjust. Cheryl leaned back in her chair, already smiling at a victory she thought she'd earned through endurance. Walter grinned. Feels like home already. Brandon turned to me with a smirk he mistook for charm. Right, babe? Absolutely, I said, standing. That works perfectly. His shoulders softened. See, I knew you'd be reasonable. Because tonight, I said, walking to the hallway closet, is my last night here. Silence hit the room like a dropped plate. What? Brandon barked. I wheeled out my suitcase. The wheels clicked over the red paisley rug. I set an envelope on the table. Divorce papers, I said. Cheryl stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. You're throwing away your marriage over a few boxes and a rug? This isn't about things, I said. It's about trust and the ground it stands on. Brandon's voice went low, as if anger could make it reasonable. You're not serious. We're not actually getting divorced. Sign the papers, I said. I already have. He looked at his parents. Walter's face drained of the confident pink of certainty. Cheryl's eyes glittered with the kind of pity that always masked contempt. You'll regret this, she hissed. Maybe, I said. I regret a lot already. I zipped the suitcase. The sound was steady, like a seam sealing. I moved toward the door, then paused with my hand on the knob. By the way, I added, voice light, almost conversational, you might want to start packing too. Cheryl frowned. Excuse me? You'll see. I stepped out onto the porch. Rain misted under the eaves, soft as breath. Behind me, voices tangled. Brandon demanding, Cheryl accusing, Walter muttering something about lawyers. The noise sounded far away, like a radio left on in a house you've already left. I carried the suitcase to my car. The handle bit into my palm, and I welcomed it, the honest weight of leaving. I put the case in the trunk and slid behind the wheel. Through the windshield, the house was a painting I no longer wanted to own. The porch light made a bright, artificial halo around the door where we'd kissed the first night after moving in. I touched the steering wheel and waited for grief to roll through me like weather. It didn't. It came cleaner, colder. Not grief, relief. I texted Jenna, I'm out for the night. Tomorrow works for the walkthrough. 3 dots pulsed, then understood. I'll coordinate. I looked one last time at the window that had framed the herb bed before Walter's vines devoured it. In the glass, my reflection was small, centered, whole. I started the car. The engine caught, steady and obedient, and the wipers moved across the glass like careful hands. I pulled away from the curb and didn't check the rearview mirror until the house was just a suggestion between trees. Never again, I said aloud to the empty car. The words didn't echo. They settled. A red light held me at the corner where the neighborhood bled into the road that led to my mother's apartment. I could almost hear her voice. Choose your peace while you still recognize it. The light changed. I turned left. Behind me, the street disappeared. Ahead, the night opened like a door that had been waiting for me to reach it. When I returned on Saturday morning, the sky hung low and heavy, like it, too, was holding its breath. I parked at the curb and stepped out slowly, the gravel crunching under my boots. The air smelled of wet leaves and distance, the kind of smell that makes you realize a chapter is ending, even before you've said the words. Brandon was already waiting at the door, arms crossed, jaw tight. He looked thinner, more tired than angry, like someone who'd been practicing a speech and couldn't quite believe he'd have to give it. "You're really doing this?" he asked. "You're actually moving out?" I didn't answer. My eyes drifted past him, inside the house. Cheryl's doilies covered every surface. Walter's recliner squatted by the fireplace, surrounded by the debris of their comfort. Mugs, slippers, magazines, half-finished puzzles. My space had been erased by theirs, rewritten without consent. "You didn't pack," I said flatly. "Why would I?" he snapped. "You're the one leaving." "Am I?" I asked quietly. Before he could reply, footsteps echoed on the path behind me. Crisp, purposeful. Brandon frowned, leaning forward to see. "Who's that?" I turned and stepped aside. Jenna appeared, clipboard in hand, her navy blazer crisp against the gray morning. "Hi," she said warmly, professional as ever. "Aurora, thanks for meeting me. Ready for the walkthrough?" Brandon's brow furrowed. "Walkthrough?" "Yes," Jenna said, flipping open her folder. "Before the final handoff, we just need to confirm the property condition." "Handoff?" Cheryl's voice floated from behind him. She appeared in the hallway, confusion sharp in her eyes. Walter followed, mug in hand, wearing the self-assured look of a man too used to being comfortable. I smiled, not wide, not cruel, just calm. "I sold the house." The words hung there, light and devastating. Brandon's face went slack. "You what?" "Sold it," I repeated. "Finalized on Wednesday." He laughed once, short and bitter. "You're bluffing." Jenna flipped through her folder again. "Sale was finalized 2 days ago. The buyer takes possession next week. We'll schedule the move-out inspection on Thursday." Walter's mug slipped slightly in his grip. Cheryl's voice trembled. "You can't do this. This is our home." I turned to her, eyes steady. "No, Cheryl, it was never your home. It wasn't Brandon's either." Brandon's voice cracked. "Wait, what do you mean? You said we were renting through your friend. You said—" "That was the story you liked better," I interrupted softly. "The truth is, I bought this house before we got married. My father left me a small inheritance. I used it for this place. I didn't put up signs or speeches about ownership. I just expected respect." Cheryl's face hardened. "You mean to tell me you had that kind of money all along, and you hid it?" "I protected it," I said. "There's a difference." Walter spoke then, slow and incredulous. "So you're really selling the house out from under us?" "I already did," I said. "You're trespassers now, or guests with an eviction notice, depending on how kind the court feels." Brandon's cheeks burned red. "You can't just waltz in here and—" Jenna lifted her clipboard politely. "Actually, she can. She's the sole owner on the deed. You'll need to vacate by Thursday." Cheryl's voice pitched high. "We just bought new furniture. We invested in this place." "That's not my problem," I said calmly. "You never asked permission to invest." Brandon's tone changed, anger fading into something desperate. "Please, Aurora, we can fix this. Don't throw everything away over pride. We can buy another place. Start over." I tilted my head. "You mean I can buy another place?" He flinched. "That's not fair." "Neither is betrayal," I said. "And that's what this is. You made promises and broke them. You built alliances behind my back. You let your parents take root in my home. You called it family. I call it strategy." His eyes glistened, confusion battling regret. "I was trying to help them." "No," I said quietly. "You were trying to prove something to your father. And you did. You proved that you're just like him." For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Cheryl stepped forward, voice shaking, but proud. "At least we have each other," she said. Unlike you. I almost smiled. You're right. You have each other now, and only each other. I turned to Jenna. Let's get started. We moved through the rooms as Jenna took notes. The fireplace, the kitchen, the worn floors. Cheryl trailed behind us, muttering disbelief, while Brandon stood frozen in the living room, staring at the space that was once his reflection of stability. Walter sat in the recliner, refusing to move, like sheer stubbornness could hold the walls together. As Jenna signed off on the inspection, I reached for the front door. I'll give you until Thursday, I said without looking back. After that, the new owners move in. Don't be here when they do. Cheryl's eyes filled with tears she didn't know how to use. Where are we supposed to go? Somewhere that's yours, I said. You've always had so much to say about how people should live. Maybe now you'll find out. Walter looked away, the fight gone from his face. Brandon's lips parted, searching for one more word that could stop me. It didn't come. I stepped outside, Jenna following. The air had shifted, lighter, freer. Behind us, the house loomed silent, no longer burdened with the noise of trespass. As we reached the walkway, Jenna hesitated. You okay? I nodded. Better than I've been in years. She smiled, then left to meet the buyers. I lingered on the sidewalk for a long moment, watching the curtains twitch inside. Then I walked to my car and didn't look back. A week later, Rachel texted me. Heard they're in a small rental on the east side. All three crammed in. Brandon's furious. Cheryl keeps calling Jared for help, but he won't answer. And apparently that condo they fought over, it was never an inheritance. Just debt. I stared at the message, the corner of my mouth lifting. The universe didn't need my revenge. It had handled it cleanly on its own. I moved into my mother's apartment temporarily. She was surprised at first, but when I told her everything, her eyes softened with the kind of understanding that only comes from scars. I never liked how he spoke to you, she said, setting down her tea. You kept saying it was fine, but I knew it wasn't. I know, I whispered. I think I wanted it to be fine so badly, I stopped noticing when it wasn't. We rearranged her living room that evening. Small things, gentle things. For the first time in years, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. Brandon called twice that week. I didn't answer. His voicemail came late one night. Aurora, please. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can buy another house. I'll talk to my parents. Just don't shut me out. But he never said I'm sorry. I deleted the message. 2 weeks later, the buyers moved in. A young couple, smiling, hopeful. I met them briefly at the door, handed them the keys, and left a note on the kitchen counter. It said, "This house is full of noise and memory and lessons. Treat each other with respect. Don't ignore red flags. And for heaven's sake, don't give your parents a key." I walked out into the sunlight and didn't look back. The air was cool, the sky open, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for permission to breathe. I hadn't just left a house, I'd left a trap, and I'd made sure the ones who built it were the ones left inside.